done, I kept thinking, if I can just get out of this vehicle. Sure. Never get back to the building.
Okay, we are going to call this meeting to order, and we thank y'all for being here, so we can get this budget approved and move on forward, and hopefully we can show each of you, especially our employees, that we value you and we appreciate all you do, and we also got to say that to the citizens of Davie County that pay for this budget, that we value them and we appreciate all they do. So Commissioner Reniger is going to lead us in the invocation.
Pray with me, please. Dear God, as we come before you this morning, we're so thankful for all the many blessings we enjoy. We absolutely live in the best place in the United States, in Davie County, and we thank you for that. Thank you for our right of self-governance. As we go through the budget today, we ask for your wisdom, guidance, and discernment. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen.
And Commissioner Finney will lead us in the pledge.
Please stand and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Mr. Vogler, ethics and conflict.
Thank you. Pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 160A-86 and Davie County Board of Commissioners Code of Ethics adopted December 2019, I'd ask each of you before you adopt this agenda if there's any actual, potential, or perceived conflicts of interest with respect to any matter on the proposed agenda which come before the board this morning for a vote. If so, please speak up and let the board know now before the agenda is adopted. Mr. Chair, seeing no one speak up, I conclude there's no actual, potential, or perceived conflicts of interest by any board member.
Thank you, Mr. Vogler. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Ms. Finney, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Reniger, he got you by a hair, Brent. All in favor? There you go. All right. Mr. Barnett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There we go. So it's continuation of our discussion on the recommended budget for fiscal year 24-25. Just wanted to start off, since we've last met on June the 3rd, we did have our public hearing, as that we are required to do after the 10-day period. We had no one sign up to speak. You all had asked to have a couple more weeks to talk and to have a discussion about some of the budget items. So some of the feedback that I received was there was a request for an additional community paramedic position that we had cut from the budget as we were looking at increase in overall employee salaries. We were not looking at adding any new positions, but we did have a conversation about the community paramedic. There was a conversation to look at, as part of this fiscal year, we implemented a new way of looking at fire funding. The fire funding this year was an increase from prior years, and we kind of took a pause on the increase for this year, as as our number one priority was to look at our employee pay. So there was a conversation to make sure that when we do the budget next year for FY 25-26, that we take a hard look at that funding model. As we know, just like county expenses are going up, we know those expenses for our fire departments are also going up. So obviously that'll be one of our top priorities as we do our next budget. And then finally, this is something a little different. As far as I know, there's only one other county that has this, but technically as a county, it was something that we can look at. We do what's called a separation allowance for our law enforcement on our sworn officers. We are looking at the creation of doing something very similar for our detention officers. I guess on one hand, I'll say the beauty of this is that we can enact it for next fiscal year, but we actually don't have anyone who meet the criteria because we're looking at modeling the detention side just like we do on the law enforcement side. So it should not cost us anything for FY '25, but we do have some folks that will be eligible in FY '26. So from a number standpoint, taking the feedback, I went ahead and added an additional column to our chart that you've looked at for the May 14th and the June 3rd. So I put the changes there in purple for today. So with the feedback that we received, the only additional cost would be for the community paramedic position, which would be in our safe and healthy community category, which would take that from $35,568,000 to $35,075,568. So ultimately, what you're going to see in the next two slides is overall from June 3rd to June 24th, the only additional cost that we are seeing is the inclusion of the community paramedic position, which we have budgeted for an additional $75,000 when you roll everything in it together. Paying for it, taking a look at some of our investment earnings this year. We had budgeted for next year $950,000. That was a conservative budget. Taking a look at where we are today, I feel pretty confident that we can come close to that number. So traditionally, when you present a budget and then you make changes, either you cut some items or you add to fund balance, and I know fund balance is something that we necessarily are trying to build back up. So taking a look at our investment earnings, taking a future ball at November, I feel on the investment side we've been trending upward. So I'm going to take that revenue for that additional position and budget it out of that particular bucket. And then finally, as you can see, our general fund is the only fund that changed over our course of our first two meetings to today. So we went from $83,801,152 to $83,876,152, which brings our grand total to $104,149,326 of our overall total funds. So that's basically what feedback and changes that we're proposing for next year during our time period here. I just went ahead and continued with our fee schedule on the utility side. Again, nothing has changed from the time we presented this back on May 14th. And then on the other fees, as we talked about on May 14th and May 3rd, the only changes that we're looking at are those involving our landfill going up on their fees. The other charges are still staying the same as no charge. So with that being said, any additional questions?
I have just one clarification on the separation allowance that we were talking about. Right. With we're going to handle that through policy, right?
Right. It's a policy, but at the same time, there's no cost next year because we don't have anyone eligible.
But we're going to amend the policy. Right. Yeah. Got it. Thank you. Other questions? And I will say this, there was one other issue that we had come up from employees that you guys have dealt with in regards to transference of service that we talked about. I have a special name for it, but I won't use that here because it has an individual's attached to it, but we've addressed that one too, right?
Right, and it's not addressed as a budgetary issue.
Right.
My game plan after our feedback during the last few weeks is to roll it out next week with the department directors at our standing July meeting to get their feedback before we fully implement it. I don't think ultimately it's I've talked to Mr. Vogler about it, it's not a significant change in how the policy is written today, but I just want to get their feedback before we make it official.
Sure. Other questions?
And I mean, this is more of a clarification just for the good of the order, is that I see that y'all have enacted the policy basically for retirement, for insurance with, for the two thresholds of 20 and 25 years respectively.
I go one step further and say we haven't fully enacted it yet, but the terminology and the starting the process is what we're looking at.
But it's enacted enough that there's nobody that's gonna fall through the crack right now or anything.
Unless somebody's going to retire before the middle of July, I would tell them to wait a minute.
Other questions or comments?
I have a comment. I will just reiterate, I would have really liked for us to got our budget packet earlier than we did. It is very difficult to go through all that information from the middle of May to the beginning or middle of June, especially because May is busier than December. I actually, as you know, still have some questions, but fortunately, a government budget is a slight bit of a breathing document. It's not always set in stone. We can do a little bit of movement if we need to. But there's, I would really like for us to, even if we get it trickled a little bit at a time, because it's just a lot to go through. And I'm ecstatic about the addition of the community paramedic, because as that program has just caught fire, I think that is much, much needed. And of course, we have been asking to take better care of our employees, but I will be perfectly honest with you all, even though I want these raises to go into effect, I am still not 100% comfortable with this process. I'm afraid of the domino effect that it may have on our county. So I think we still need to be talking about the parameters and be included in that conversation and make sure that we're getting all that exactly how it fits best for our county. So.
Thank you. Any others? Any other comments? Well, you know, Brian, several years ago, we started with a discussion about these stages, these pay ranges, and you talked to us about that really when you first came here. And so I appreciate your work, all your work, the whole staff's work to implement this. I think obviously there's going to be fluidity to it. There's going to be we're going to have to tweak it at some point and have talks about that. Anything that you do new but that you have to do that sometimes. But I'll tell you, I really appreciate this. I think it's a great help to all of our employees. It'll be a great retention tool. It'll be a great recruiting tool. And so I just thank you for taking that idea and running with it. And really, we really appreciate all Robin, Cindy, all of y'all that have worked on this. Yeah, and all our department heads that have been a part of this.
And I will say, just for staff, with this being a new system that we're going to implement next week, because the new fiscal year actually times up with the start of a pay period, just to be patient. We are implementing something new, and so we have to work some of those kinks out. Just in case that first run doesn't go 100% according to plan, we will get it fixed.
Well, I just appreciate all the work, and this is focused, as we all know, on trying to get our employees' pay up more commensurate with the market, and it is a step in the right direction. It definitely embeds more objectivity than anything we've ever had, so I think that's positive. So, but appreciate the fact that it is a working process, but thank you.
Yeah, I'll say what might be perceived as the negative part of this first, but overall positive. I want us to make sure, that I think we need to work to continually have a seat at the table for the commissioners when it comes to, the evaluation of the pay and the evaluation of potential certification raises, and make sure that, there is as much equity and as much fairness as possible, because we got to keep in mind that the statutory charge we have is this is our budget. Now, what I will say then, however, I really appreciate what y'all have done. You've done a great job with it. I think it's a step in the right direction. And I also think there's always that balancing act between allowing the professional staff to do their job, but us still having the right amount of input to do that. So, I think it's a work in progress, and it's trending in the right direction.
I'll kind of piggyback on that too, because he brought up about the steps and all, and I don't want our employees to think their value revolves around a piece of paper. And that's my biggest heartburn with the parameters that I have seen so far. is they're all based on a class or a this or that. Not every department has the same opportunity to obtain additional certifications and to attend classes because of their department size or because of their family life, frankly. So I'm very apprehensive about that. I never want people to think their value and their appreciation is based on a piece of paper. And as we know in this county, we have many of the people who have built the foundation of this county did so with simply a high school diploma. So a piece of paper does not a person make. And I do have a little heartburn about that. But like I said, those are still things that we can discuss.
Yeah, I just want to clarify I think what we've done is put a lot of this on paper. In talking to the departments through this process, I found out that a lot of our departments have certifications, they have opportunities, but in the past have not had the opportunity or were unaware that they could incentivize their people and reward them for going out there. And if they do receive these certifications or they do obtain additional education, I know our neighboring counties are doing this, and I know there's a value to our folks who go out and do it as someone who has gotten certifications myself. So I think putting it to paper really does help. I am going to depend heavily on the department heads and directors to work through this process. They have to know their people and their operations and their schedules to make sure that this works out efficiently and effectively. I'm going to lean on them for that. But I think it's good just putting it down. I think putting it down on paper is a good first step, just so that we have it, so that it's not in one department here or in one department there. Now it's pretty much countywide. I think actually we had departments that I was unaware they had all these opportunities, and I think some of our own folks didn't realize until they actually wrote it down how many opportunities are actually out there. But I think anything that we can do to make our employees better is a direct reflection that we can have on the services that we provide to our citizens.
And I do wish, again, that we had gotten that parameter information a little quicker, and I certainly wish I had got the updated payroll sheet sooner, because that's a lot to go through over the weekend.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
And of course, the motion is to approve your amended dollar amount. Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. Do we have a second?
Second.
I believe Brent got you by a second there, Richard.
Another Kentucky Derby fan.
Brent second. Any other discussion? All in favor? Okay. That is unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Barnett. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Ms. Finney, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Freniger, any discussion? All in favor? All right, thank you so much. Mr. Barnett or Mr. Vogler, do we have any rationale for a closed session? No, sir. All right, we will waive item 8, and do we have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Poindexter, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? All right, guys, we stand adjourned. Thank you for all you do.